Welcome to Tune In YRDSB. It's November, and that means students across Ontario are preparing to write the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test, known as the OSSLT. We know this test can raise a lot of questions. What does the test look like? How can you prepare? What accommodations are available for students with an individual education plan? To help answer these questions, we've invited some YRDSB educators to share practical tips, strategies, and insights. Let's meet them now.
Hello, I'm Heather Young. I'm Principal in Curriculum and Instructional Services with the Portfolio of Literacy.
Hi there, I'm Steve Hopkins, Principal of Student Services, so I coordinate special education services regionally.
Hello, I'm Julia Wilson, and I'm Curriculum Consultant of English, Evaluation, Assessment, and Communication.
My name is Evan Loretto Lee. I am with Student Services, and I am the Assistive Technology Consultant for the West region of the school board.
Stay tuned. You'll learn what to expect on the test, how to approach your answers, and even how AI tools can support your preparation. Let's jump into the conversation.
So, what is the OSSLT and why is it important?
The OSSLT stands for the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. It's a standardized test across Ontario that was announced in 1998 and was first administered during the 2001 and 2002 school year. It's administered by EQAO and is a provincial graduation requirement. It's one of the 32 requirements for students in order to earn their Ontario Secondary School diploma. The test is important because it measures whether students have the reading and writing skills that they are expected to have learned in all subjects by the end of grade 9. So while it doesn't count towards students' course marks, it's an important indicator of literacy across the province.
So who does take the test? Is it all secondary students then?
Students in the YRDSB typically take the test in grade 10. Students across Ontario typically take the test in grade 10, with some exceptions.
At what time of the year does this take place?
The OSSLT is administered twice a year. Typically, students write it in mid-November, and then there's another round again in the spring.
So I'm curious about, for the student that's in grade 9 coming into grade 10 or in September of grade 10 and they're hearing about this OSSLT thing. What should they be thinking about? How should they think about this thing?
Right, great question. So students should be prepared to demonstrate their literacy skills, specifically their reading, writing, comprehension strategies on the OSSLT in grade 10. So they should know that it's based on the skills for the year before. If they're doing well in their courses, if they are successful in their ENL 1W course and finding their literacy skills across all other disciplines have been successful, then they really should not have too much to worry about. Once it comes time to write the test, they can expect that their teachers and administrators will help them to get organized. The test, unlike when I was in school, is entirely online. So it will be broken up into 2 sessions, either back-to-back or on separate days, and they'll answer a number of questions on reading and comprehension and writing.
Okay, so if they're doing well or they're doing okay in their grade 9 English course and generally able to communicate their thinking in other courses and that they can definitely prepare, and there's going to be supports for that, but they can relax a little bit and kind of just take it as it comes?
Yes, absolutely. This is something that we hope all students will be prepared for by the time that they reach grade 10. So it's great to do a bit of studying or review or manage your expectations, take a look at the practice test, but we hope that students will be successful on it just based on their grade 9 learning.
That is great news, because I know my kids would have really appreciated hearing that from someone other than their father. So that's thank you.
I remember when just supporting students, just the modality of the test is such a big part of it. So just understanding how you move between the different sections makes such a big difference. So as you say, like they should be ready for it. Like this is not a whole bunch of new content. It's them knowing how to navigate the platform, and that I feel like makes a big difference too. So
exactly.
So it's all online, but what does it actually look like?
Students would enter in through a sort of a portal. They'd have access to the website, and there's different versions of the test that students can access, but they would enter in, and it's all sort of tabbed on the side, and they sort of sequence through the different sections. And students can start at the beginning, they can move around, they can kind of start with a section, decide to sort of pause it, and follow up with it a little bit later. or they can go through in order. But it's sort of laid out really nicely with intentional, mindful moments to think about, sort of to relax and sort of calm themselves, because there's a lot of talk about the test, and sometimes students kind of get a little bit nervous, but it slows them down to remember that this is stuff that they know.
The accessible features are also available to all students on OSSLT, so they've got things like zoom, highlighting options, text grab, and different features which are available to all students. If students want to get a little bit experienced in playing with the test itself, the practice test that's available on the EQAO website, it's really great, and it's the exact same test format and interface as they can expect on the actual test.
And usually we really want to encourage students to try that stuff out before they actually get into the test, just to get familiar with. They may never use something like screen masking, where it kind of covers up the lines around where they want to look, but maybe on the test it would just sort of help them focus, and having that practice is really effective. And like Julia said, like, you can really get in there and try all of those features out before the stakes sort of get a little higher and they actually have to do the test.
So there are questions that like focus in to determine reading skills and writing skills. So what would be some examples of what those questions might look like?
That's a great question. The reading skills uses selections like information paragraphs, news reports, dialogues, etc. And what they're looking for is that students can understand ideas that are stated explicitly, so direct quotations, statistics, information that is certainly in the text and can be circled, highlighted, identified, and also that they have the ability to grab that indirectly or implicitly stated information, so things that they might have to infer. For example, if we're looking at a dialogue text, students might consider the vocabulary that or the tone of the writing itself to make inferences about how the characters are feeling. And then throughout the reading skills, students will continue to make connections between their text and their own personal knowledge, so those text-to-world, text-to-self, and text-to-text connections.
And then what about the questions that are really focused in on evaluating writing skills?
Great question. So the writing skills evaluate students' abilities to develop a main idea with good supporting details. They are looking for strong organization of information and that the writing is clear and coherent. Spelling, grammar, and punctuation are also considered on the writing tasks.
Really happy to hear that the technical accommodations in terms of like the technical features that are there, the screen masking, sorry, thank you, and highlighting, and those things are available to everybody. What if my student has an IEP? What kind of accommodations are available for them?
Any student with an IEP will receive the exact accommodations for the test that are listed in their plan and used for their regular schoolwork. So this might be extra time, a quiet setting, or anything else that's on the IEP. Decisions about accommodations are met in consultation with students' parents, the student themselves, and the school staff, but IEPs are absolutely honored on OSSLT.
And a lot of the features, too, that are available, it's great because some students sort of might have all of their needs met based on what's already provided by the tools that are on the online portal. But if students are using tools like Read and Write for Google Chrome, you can integrate that as well with the test. And so before the test actually starts, we have the opportunity to go over with students how to turn it on to make sure that there's no anxiety around the sort of the technical side of how to access the test. But to Julia's point, we really want to make sure that when students are working in classes, that we sort of mimic that when they're doing all kinds of tests and assessments. We want to make sure that they're comfortable in both environments, because we want to make sure that they do their best work. And when you sort of make those changes last minute, if they can use something they're not used to, that adds a little bit more stress. And so there's lots of opportunities to practice, but also anything that they have access to on their IEP based on sort of accommodations, all of that is honored, and it integrates really nicely with the online platform.
If I'm a parent or a student that's listening to this podcast and I hear this and I'm thinking, this is fantastic, but I have no idea what that's actually going to look like on the day, who would I talk to?
Yeah, so I mean, always start with your teacher, see where they can support you. And if they're not quite sure, then every school has a student services department, whether it's a resource teacher or a department head. Somebody in that space would definitely be able to help you out to figure out how you access these things, where you can practice these things, showing you on the practice test, there's actually a whole section devoted to the tools exclusively. So you can go through each page and look at each tool specifically and say, okay, this one might be helpful, maybe this one won't be. And anything that isn't sort of already captured on the portal, things like read and write, or if you have other tools to support sort of low vision or any other tools like you need larger print, all of those things can be prearranged in conjunction with your teacher or your resource teacher or with the department head of student services as well.
There are so many options available to students in high school. Programs, courses, extracurriculars that let you explore the areas that interest you, while gaining skills and practical experience that can help you in the future. But it can be hard to know where to start. Maybe you have ideas about what interests you, but you don't know what those options are. There are tools on the school board website that can help. You can choose areas that interest you and explore potential careers, courses, and programs in that area. Interested in the environment? Did you know there's a specialist high skills major focused on the environment? Or one in horticulture and landscaping. There's also co-op, dual credits, apprenticeships, summer opportunities, and more. All of our secondary schools offer great program options. Learn more today and visit yrdsb.ca/experienceyrdsb or visit the secondary school section of the board website.
Are there any special considerations for multilingual language learners?
Absolutely. A multilingual language learner may receive special provisions, so they might have an adjusted setting or additional time on the test. And then because the OSSLT is wanting to represent students' literacy skills at the end of grade 9, depending on where students are in their ESL learning, they might actually be able to defer the OSSLT by until a year that they have acquired that level of English proficiency.
So I'm actually on this podcast also as a parent of a grade 10 student. So here's a wondering that I have from that lens. How can my child prepare for the test?
The best preparation is engaging in their regular schoolwork, as the test assesses skills that are learned across all subjects. You can actually see on the OSSLT website which Ontario curricula they pulled various ideas from. And they can also take a look at the online practice test. So we really want to emphasize this as one of the most important preparation tools provided by EQAO, just because it gives you that holistic practice based on the test's tools, the expectations, and then of course the questions themselves. So we encourage families to have their students explore it on the EQAO website, eqao.com, and this can make them familiar with all kinds of different things. Beyond this, however, we want to emphasize that students are practicing their literacy everywhere and at all times. So any reading comprehension or writing composition that students are doing, either at home or in school, even conversations and dialogue, can be seen as practice in preparation for OSSLT.
Steve, you mentioned before about just we want them to go in not feeling stressed, right? Feeling confident and not worried. So the question I want to pose to the group is how can students really be mindful about their well-being as they approach the test and on the day of the test? What could they be doing to take care of themselves?
That's a really important question. It's completely normal for students to feel some stress before any assessment, and we understand that the OSSLT can sometimes feel daunting because it comes from outside of the school and they've maybe heard things from their siblings or other peers, but we really believe that student well-being is foundational for their success. So there are some strategies that you can discuss with your child so that they feel a little bit more prepared and a little bit less anxious when the test day comes. The first is that we want students to keep perspective when writing OSSLT. So OSSLT can actually be written as many times as a student needs in order to pass it. It is one of the 32 requirements for graduation. So among all of the other things that they're doing in order to earn their high school graduation, OSSLT is just one of them. It doesn't affect their course marks. It's really a standardized test looking at literacy rates across Ontario. Something else that they can do is focus on basics. So in order to feel prepared, it's great to be thinking about the test in the weeks leading up to it and practice in little chunks so that students don't feel too overwhelmed. So they can take a look at the online practice test at one point. They can practice some reading comprehension with a parent or a friend leading up to it. They can practice some organized writing and build those skills slowly because they do take a bit of time just to sink in to the degree that students will feel really, really confident when that test day comes. And then don't forget the basics. So as teenagers writing this test, we want to emphasize that you make sure to get enough sleep, especially the night before, that you are taking care of your physical health by eating healthy and having a meal before you write the test, and then make sure that you're also taking breaks from studying. So move, stretch, get some fresh air. If you're feeling overwhelmed on the test itself, there are some mindful strategies that have actually been built into the test. So there is a breathing tool available to students that you can also explore on the practice test, and that can help you feel a bit more confident that if you get anxious halfway through the test, there are supports available for you, even built into the platform itself.
So we've talked a little bit about the accessibility features that are available for students. And I'm also just wondering, what does everyone here know about the information around the equitable and inclusive practices and considerations that have been put into place for OSSLT?
Yeah, I think that when we're thinking about assessment, we really want to make sure that we're not looking or getting stuck on how the assessment is delivered. When we think about accessibility broadly, we want to make sure that how a student sort of navigates a thing doesn't limit their ability to express their skills and their strengths. Because we've seen historically that sometimes tests are built in a way that it advantages certain learners. People who are really good at writing their answers out may do well on a test that really just focuses on that writing. So I think the adjustments that they've made to allow for these sort of assistive tools and having access to the accommodations that you are maybe used to, it sort of broadens access. So you think about different ways of entering a building, that's just sort of built into how we do this test as well. Students can share their learning using these different tools to make sure that their ideas are captured, not just the specific ways of writing down their answer may be captured. So I think it's done a really great job of broadening that access.
Absolutely. And equity, diversity, and inclusion is a major consideration for EQAO. So the test goes through an extensive process to ensure that it is aligned with equity, diversity, and inclusion. They actually have an EDI committee who reviews the test questions, the test modalities, and identifies and removes any cultural, social, linguistic biases that could unfairly advantage or disadvantage any group of students. The OSSLT also is really focused on improving learning for all students. So because of that, they remain in touch with teachers and students in the province. Teachers actually contribute to or review the creation of the test to help make sure that it is aligned with real students up to grade 9. And then it's also developed, like Evan said, using the principles of universal design for learning. So while we talked a bit about accommodations for students with IEPs or some considerations for MLL students, the OSSLT is also designed to include accessibility features so that all students can demonstrate their absolute best abilities on the test.
If I could just jump in, I think one of the big pieces about that preparation and students understand that I can use all these tools if I have it on my IEP or if I've used it in my other classes. That practice is so important. Like when we're thinking about ways to sort of prepare for the test, having students intentionally using these tools in that practice, if they're expecting to use sort of like highlighting or taking notes or anything like that, all of those tools are available within the portal that they can access during the test. But if they've never taken notes using sticky notes, if they've never done this, they've never highlighted before, that doesn't seem like a useful skill. So we want to make sure that they have that practice beforehand and making sure that they can, whether it's at home or if it's at school, supported by the teachers or by families, that practice really goes a long way to turning these accessibility tools into just from features into actual sort of useful strategies.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to know that the OSSLT, your teachers, your school, we all want you to do well on OSSLT and to feel confident with your answers and feel as though you were really successful on the test. So it's created by educators for students with real students in mind. In 2018, EQAO actually did a large survey and asked 120 students across Ontario to speak to their concerns with schooling and learning, asking them questions like, what do you want your teacher to know about you? What do you enjoy in learning? And then they took that information and included it to continue improving their test and making it really represent students in Ontario in an increasingly accurate and positive way.
We believe that every student can be successful. That drives our work. We are looking for individuals who share this commitment to student learning, well-being, and achievement. Learn more about why YRDSB might be the right fit for you and the range of careers available with the school board at yrdsb.ca/careers.
think about just this concept of literacy in general? So in YRDSB, we have a comprehensive literacy framework, and there are guiding principles and belief statements that kind of guide the work for all of us as teachers of literacy. And that's one of the belief statements, actually, is that we are all teachers of literacy, and that literacy occurs across all grades, subjects, and disciplines. So, for example, in elementary school, literacy doesn't just happen in the language block, and in secondary school, literacy doesn't just happen in English classes. Could you speak to that?
Definitely. Students are demonstrating literacy skills in all classes. The reading, the critical thinking, comprehension, communication. If we consider the analysis required for complicated word problems in math, or the ways in which students have to communicate their findings in history or geography. So we absolutely recognize that we are all teachers of literacy in the YRDSB, and that each subject includes its own terminology and communication considerations. This is especially important because it relates to a student's success in school and also in their future endeavors. So whether your child is planning to go on to university or college or directly into the workplace, strong literacy skills are going to help them succeed. We all need to write resumes, participate in spoken interviews. Perhaps they will write reports or contracts, send professional emails. And so we understand that all students need to be well versed in these strategies. We also recognize that the world is changing rapidly, and so we want to include many different ideas about literacy within our teaching in the board, and should have the opportunity to show those abilities within the classroom. So literacy is a vehicle to new worlds and to success in the future. We firmly believe that it allows us to connect with different perspectives, to build empathy, to be a strong citizen and participant in adulthood, and it's hugely important to us that all students have equal access and opportunity to those skills and that learning.
I love the that sort of broad definition of literacy and sort of, you know, as a board working towards that and validating and the many different ways that we can communicate. Thinking back to the OSSLT, is there, like, for a student that that is very comfortable with expressive language and has all of those different modalities, that's great. But if there's a student that's maybe a little concerned, maybe not feeling as confident about how they express themselves in written form, because it's going to be written, is there a particular format that they should be thinking about and trying to build their confidence in? Like, should it all be prose? You know, the sentences, paragraphs, that kind of thing, or, you know, is point form going to be appropriate, or like, is there any kind of guidance that we can give those students?
Students should demonstrate their understanding in the way that works best for them. So if students are going to have a very difficult time putting their writing into those longer prose sentences, rather than leaving anything blank, they should absolutely use point form. Because the OSSLT is based on skills that they hopefully gained in the ENL 1W course, we really recommend that students go back and review the strategies that their teachers taught them for effective communication in grade 9. So I know all across the board we're using many different acronyms for how to develop an effective paragraph. Maybe you're doing the PEI method, the point, evidence, importance. Maybe it's PEA, the point, evidence, analysis, or whatever hopefully helpful acronym your teachers taught you. Absolutely go back and try to remember that structure, because that level of organization in full prose is what the OSSLT is hoping to see. That's the level of writing and organization and sentence structure that they are wanting students to be capable of by the time that they're writing the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. Any of those methods are great. For the longer writing piece, for the opinion essay at the end, we recommend that 3 paragraphs, an introduction, a body paragraph at a minimum, and if students are feeling up for it, then absolutely trying to write that full 5-paragraph essay, what might be called a hamburger essay, with the introduction, the 3 paragraphs each containing a well-developed point, and then a conclusion wrapping everything up would be your best bet at success on that particular writing task.
Thank you. So I love the fact that now people might have kind of a goal in mind. But what I'm hearing you say is, if you don't think you're going to reach that goal in the moment, just get all of your thinking in there, no matter how it comes out.
Absolutely. You never want to leave it blank. And I experienced this with my math testing because I have very low math literacy. And that was my strategy when I was trying to get through grade 11 math, which took me not 1, not 2, but 3 attempts to get here. And one of my strategies in that was to lean on my communication skills in those moments and to write, if this is correct, here's what my thinking would be. The person who's assessing your test is looking for opportunities to give you marks. They're not looking for opportunities to deduct them. Any way that you can show your learning is going to be positive and is going to be considered. So if you are somebody who's so strong in math literacy, perhaps you're not totally confident answering a longer answer question about some of those visual information texts. But if you understand what is being communicated in terms of that numeric literacy, by all means, include some notes about that. Demonstrate your strengths any way that you can, because it all counts.
So I feel like we couldn't have this conversation without just mentioning the fact that we are in the age of artificial intelligence and thinking about what are some of the considerations for the ways literacy is changing. So could we speak a little bit to like digital literacy, critical literacy? What does that look like, especially through the lens of the OSSLT?
Certainly. So literacy has always been attached to technology, whether that was with physical books or the printing press or email. It's always tied to the mode through which students are playing with it, experiencing it, and the ways in which it is expanding. We really want to emphasize digital literacy as an important skill for 21st century learners. This includes the ability to use technology to find, evaluate, create communication, and communicate information. And it means understanding how to navigate a website, use artificial intelligence, participate in a video discussion. So those are all really important skills. I think an idea that is coming out in some of the critical literacy circles right now is that our 21st century learners are actually engaging with literacy more than any generation ever before. While we might not think that this looks exactly like it did when we were young in terms of holding physical books or, reading the newspaper, because of social media, artificial intelligence, and their skills in technology, they have a degree of literacy that's really unique. I mean, I look even at my parents who are incredibly well read, but cannot print anything unless I support them with it. So that's a degree of digital literacy too. And then media literacy, of course, looks at news articles, but also we have to consider social media, videos, advertisements, TikToks, and ask the important questions like who created this message, why, and whose perspectives are missing. So we know our students are very savvy in this, and we hope that that recognition is going to continue to evolve into all literacy assessments. So not just the OSSLT, but how our teachers across all disciplines including these new modalities that we know our students are expertly skilled at into their learning and giving them the opportunities to show their understanding of the curriculum through these new modes that many of them are experts in. Critical literacy is hugely important as well. It's a deeper level of thinking that really concerns any communication form with aspects of equity, power imbalances, etc., and it recognizes the idea that every story is told from a particular perspective. We also want to recognize diverse literacies and different cultures, so the ability to tell a powerful oral story, create meaningful visual design, or even read or write in a language other than English. These are all hugely valuable literacy skills, and we hope that OSSLT and the YRDSB is going to continue to embrace this kind of knowledge in their assessment and evaluation now and in the future.
So there are a lot of families listening in today. So thinking about not specific to OSSLT, but just in general, what are ways that parents and families and caregivers and community could support with literacy learning at home?
I think even on sort of the heels of the question about AI is using that as a tool to support this preparation. So maybe a family isn't confident in saying, I don't know if this paragraph was written in a way that would be supported or receive a higher grade on the OSSLT or something. If we use tools like that to sort of say, tell me your assessment of this paragraph. Tell me what, like you can go into Copilot or Gemini or some similar AI tool and say, my child wrote this paragraph. Can you give me some feedback? Does this follow the structure that would be appropriate on sort of an OSSLT, or is this clear? So can we use those tools to support our help for our students? Because students are very comfortable navigating these tools. And we want to make sure that these are not just answer machines. They're not just there to tell us the answer, but they can be a really helpful, critical friend. They can be somebody or some presence in your academic world to give you really good feedback and say, this is missing. Maybe your arguments are strong in the first part, but the second one could use a little bit more specificity. Like it could be strengthened that way too. So I feel like there's a lot of really great tools out there, and you can lean on those to sort of inform how you can support your children preparing for this test if you may not be so comfortable sort of giving them that feedback directly.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely an equity opportunity within the developments of artificial intelligence, whereby students who may not have a parent who speaks English at all or as a first language at home can participate with this device in sort of a tutor study format, and that can really help them have equal opportunity to preparing for the test. Or students who might not have just access to parents or support in the time that they're working on it after school, AI can be there for you to really help and also be a reassuring voice in terms of how well you're doing and what else you could be focusing on.
What can literacy learning at home just broadly, what could that look like?
Students are always engaging with literacy learning. It's any form of communication. So conversations around the dinner table are examples of literacy learning. Any reading that students are doing is literacy learning. So we really want to emphasize that there's no wrong way for students to read. If students are into comic books, if they're into high interest reading, for example, if they are really interested in a video game and they are participating in online forums, this is another great use and practice of their literacy skills. So it is absolutely all around us. Anytime that you are engaging with language, communication, critical thought, you are engaging with literacy and you are preparing for the OSSLT.
Thank you so much, everyone. So for everyone out there who's writing the test this semester, or if you're administering the test, or if you are supporting your child at home as they're preparing, you can do it. Literacy is all around you. Thanks so much, everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about graduation requirements, the OSSLT, or tips for studying and managing stress, visit the YRDSB website. You might also enjoy our past episode featuring students and mental health professionals sharing strategies for preparing for exams and tests. Thank you for listening to Tune In YRDSB. Don't miss our next episode. Subscribe now and join us as we continue to share resources and stories that support student success.